So you got a PS5 on launch, you got an Xbox Series X, but you're wondering, do I need to upgrade my television? Do I need to get a new gaming monitor to fully utilize this new hardware? I want to make sure you're not getting any bum deals out there, because HDMI 2.1 is pretty new. And what does it actually mean from a gaming standpoint? You hear all the numbers, but at the end of the day, are you going to use it? I want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, and if you want to upgrade, to give you a buying guide so you're not getting any bum deals while you're out shopping. Stick around, let's do it. Before I get into what TVs and monitors will work, I just want to go ahead and give you a quick overview of the basics of like frames per second and hertz, because they're not the same. They work together, but they're not actually the same. When it comes to hertz, that's your television or your monitor. Simple as that. Hertz is your television or monitor. When it comes to frames per second, that's your hardware, your computer or gaming console. So they are different, but they work together to create the gaming experience. So for instance, if you have a monitor or a TV that is newer and it's 4K and it's basically a 60 hertz monitor, because most televisions are 60 hertz, and you have this new console or a high-end gaming computer that can output 120 frames a second. The lower number is where your experience is going to be. So if you have a 60 hertz monitor and a 120 frames per second system, or it has the ability to do it, you're still going to be gaming at that level of 60, because the monitor can only put out that speed essentially. If you have a monitor that can do 120, a system that can do 120, that's going to make your experience a little bit smoother. It's going to be able to play that at 120 frames a second. So I hope that makes it easy. Hertz and FPS are not the same, but they work together to make your experience, and you can't really have one without the other, if that makes sense. That's where the kind of predicament with the updated consoles comes out. We're promised these 4K, 120 frames a second gameplay experiences. The problem is, almost every television made is a 60 hertz 4K TV, because there was no need for 120 hertz, because it really didn't have any existence among gamers at that point. We had nothing to really do it. And most PC gamers have options with gaming monitors, which we'll talk about in a second. So you have this new console and you're playing 4K and it looks amazing, and 60 hertz is great, and 60 frames per second is really a perfect number. But if you're playing a first-person shooter, if you're playing a racing simulator, if you want to be competitive, the smoothness does make a little bit of a difference. And so how can you get that 120 hertz television or monitor? By just looking at it. Well, you can't, and that's why I'm here to help. So real quick, HDMI 2.1 is on the back of the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Previously, there's other HDMI versions. We're not going to talk about that. But like USB, the higher the number, the faster. So USB 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. It's a speed, a data transfer. HDMI is the same way. We've had HDMI, I think it was 1 or 1.4, and then there's 2.0, which is what most systems or consoles and TVs have these days, and then we have now HDMI 2.1. Well, because HDMI 2.1 is so new, there is actually not a single computer monitor out right now that has HDMI 2.1 on it. As of this video, there isn't one. We'll talk about that in a second. But there are a handful of televisions that you can buy that have HDMI 2.1. But I don't want you to get out and look at these 120 hertz TVs and then end up realizing it doesn't have HDMI 2.1. That's where I'm going to help you, and I'll have a little quick buying guide here at the end. So now that we got the hertz and the frames per second out of the way, I want to give you a heads up on the resolution, because the PS5 and the Xbox Series X do have multiple resolutions. Most of us are used to the 1080p or 1K. Now we have these systems that are 4K, and if you have a 4K TV, it's going to look crisper and clearer, and it's going to be maxed out at 60 hertz, 60 frames a second. But the Xbox Series X does cater to the computer gaming crowd a little bit, because they offer a 2K resolution, something the PS5 does not offer. So the PS5 is 1K, 4K. The Xbox is 1K, 2K, 4K. And why does that make a difference? Because if you don't want to upgrade to a brand new computer monitor or a TV, your current gaming monitor might offer 1K at 120 or 144 hertz, which will let you play your Xbox Series X at that with the titles that are available. Or 1440p, which is a sweet spot for gamers because you're getting a way higher resolution than 1080, not quite 4K, but on a smaller screen, I would say 32 inches or below, it's kind of hard to tell major differences between 4K and 2K, which is why a lot of TV screens that are 4K are also huge, because the bigger the screen, the more you can see the pixels. Are you with me? I'm trying to make it pretty simple because there's a lot, but I want to make it so that you understand it. So with gaming monitors, 2K is a very, very good sweet spot. The problem is the PS5 doesn't output 2K. It's 1K or 4K. So essentially, you've either got to pick 1080p or 4K. And with the gaming monitors not having HDMI 2.1, there's no option to utilize it to its max potential. With TVs, there are some options. So moving back to talking about the different resolutions, we have 1K, 2K, 4K, and the PS5 only offers 1K and 4K. Not a big deal, but here's the thing. If you're enjoying your gaming experience, there's very few titles right now that can actually run 4K at 120 frames a second. That's because a computer would be incredibly expensive to run that, and at this point, there's very few people that are running 4K 120. And the PS5 only has a couple games that offer 4K 120, and they're more indie titles. I don't want to say I'd put money on it, but it's gonna be hard to find a AAA title like God of War, like a new Halo game, that's gonna run 120 frames a second at 4K resolution. I don't know if the hardware, at least right now, is gonna be able to handle that. Maybe they can modify it, they can really put some stuff in because they can, utilize the hardware to its fullest potential. But right now, you're gonna see indie titles at 4K 120, and then you're gonna see titles like Destiny 2. You're gonna say, oh, Call of Duty, Cold War, it says 120. That's because it drops the resolution down. Does that make sense? So you play the game at 4K, but now you want to play it at 120 frames a second? You have to drop the resolution to 1080p. And you're going, okay, cool, so my 4K TV will drop 1080, I'll play it. Not exactly. It still doesn't output 120 hertz. So no matter what you want to do, you need a 120 hertz television to utilize 120 frames per second or anything in between. Hope you're following me. So that's where the buying guide comes in, because there are a few televisions that offer HDMI 2.1 and can utilize a full 4K 120 hertz signal that is required to see that through a PS5 or Xbox Series X. You have to have HDMI 2.1. Computer monitors don't exist with HDMI 2.1 yet. There are some coming out. But here's the thing, if you're a gaming enthusiast and you're a PC gamer and you're going, hold on, I've been playing 4K 120, you've been using a thing called a display port, and we're not going to get into it, but a display port is like an HDMI, except it's different. It's a different plug-in, a little different look to it, but it actually puts out 4K 120 for PC gamers. But again, if you want to play your console on a gaming monitor, there is no option with HDMI 2.1 at this point. So before we get to the buying guide, you have to ask yourself, if you're enjoying your experience, and most AAA games, I believe, will not be able to fully go 4K 120, your 4K 60 hertz television is probably going to be perfect for a while, for a long while. And realistically, unless you want to lower the resolution down, that's as good as it's going to look on a screen. So if you have a 4K 60 hertz TV, that's about as good as it's going to look, unless you want to go spend the hard-earned cash and buy the latest and greatest. But if you buy it now, you always know you pay a little more because it's new technology. So with that information out of the way, let's get to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X buying guide for TVs. And we'll talk about gaming monitors as well. But I'm going to show you what TVs are available at this point, what you can buy, and how you can make sure it's got HDMI 2.1 to make sure that you are getting a legit TV or monitor that can utilize your console to its fullest potential. All right, new mic, new camera, switching over the desk here, but this is where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take you to Best Buy, because if you're looking for a TV, everybody knows Best Buy, it's easy, and I just wanna show you guys how you can find these TVs that have HDMI 2.1 and the correct hertz. That way, if you're looking, you're not going, holy crap, there's a lot of TVs, what do I use? So we're going to the Best Buy website, go to Shop TVs, and then go all flat screen televisions. Very simple, and we're just gonna filter it out. So on the left here, especially on a desktop, it makes it really easy. So on the left, you can see screen size, but I wouldn't worry about that because there's so few TVs. Let's just click on what we need. What we need is we gotta find a TV that's 4K, right? That's what we wanna do if we're gonna utilize this. You can click 8K, but unless you've got 10 grand, I wouldn't worry about that. And then we're gonna go refresh rate right here. That's a big one. That's what we want, 120 hertz. Notice how it's only 60 and 120. That's because Televisions don't have all of the options like gaming monitors. They don't have 60, 75, 120, 144. It's basically 60 for a long time, and some did have 120, and now it's going to be those two options. And then first thing, I'll go here to I'll go low to high, just to make it super easy. So the lowest price television right now that you can buy is an LG NanoCell 49-inch. That's the smallest TV at Best Buy you can buy. Now here's the thing, you're going, sweet, I can buy it. Let's add it to cart. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's got the HDMI 2.1, because TVs do have 120 hertz sometimes natively where they can process it, but they don't actually take it and bring it through a console. I don't want to get too far into that, but basically you want to make sure it has HDMI 2.1. So what I like to do is you can go to specifications, but a lot of times somebody right now with these, look at that first question, does it have HDMI 2.1? Because with the new consoles out, that's one of the biggest questions on 4K TVs. Everybody wants to know. And the answers are yes, 2 of the 4 HDMI ports are 2.1. So you read it, 49-inch class 4K, model number, does not have a tuner, which we don't need to worry about that, but it does feature 2 2.1 ports and 2 2.0 ports. So there you go. Then someone else, the first questions are all on the PS5. Does this run 4K at 120 or downgrade to 60 at 4K? This guy writes, HDMI 2.1 ports allow for higher resolutions at higher frame rates than before. So again, that's what you want to look for. So right now, we got a home run. If you want to spend $600 and buy a 49-inch TV from Best Buy, that's your best deal on a television. It's got good reviews, it's decent. If you're a big-time television, I don't want to call you a snob, but you're all into it, maybe go a little more expensive. But if you just want to utilize your console to its max, this is the one you want to look at. And just for the sake of showing you, let's say a TV that does hit all the check marks with 120 hertz, it's a 4K. Let's click on this TCL. $900, 65-inch. It literally says right here in the specifications that it is, it is 120 hertz right there. You can see it, 120 hertz, full array. It's got HDR. I mean, it's got everything you need, much like the previous LG TV. But again, make sure you go to questions and answers, because somebody will ask, what are the ports? Is it Xbox Series X and PS5 ready? And someone goes, this panel does not have HDMI 2.1. So the bandwidth will not support 4K at 120. If you're going to invest in a PS5 or Xbox, get a panel with 2.1. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it looks almost identical. It even says it's 120 because it actually is a 120 hertz refresh rate, but it doesn't have the port to let you bring in your console to get that same exact refresh. So it's limited to, I believe, 60 hertz at 4K. Now you can probably play 1080 at 120, but again, if you're going to spend the money, just make sure you future-proof it. So that's just an easy one to make sure that you look at the questions and answers, because if you don't, this is going to sit at the 4K 120 filter, and you're going to think, oh, $900 is the cheapest one on this, I'm going to pick it up. But you'll be disappointed when you see that it's actually only got HDMI 2.0 and it can't utilize 4K 120 or anything above that. So I hope that does show at least a little bit of the discrepancy. All right, so I clicked on monitors and then I clicked 4K. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm looking for a 4K UHD, which is a 4K monitor, and I want a refresh rate of basically 120 or higher. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to go 120, 144. And you're going, okay, cool. Well, here we go. 27-inch, 144 hertz, HDR. It's not available right now, but let's just say it was available. The LG, which is one of the best gaming monitors you can buy. I believe this is the 950. Let's click on it. Yep, 27-inch 950 gaming monitor. This is amazing. So you click on the specifications. It's 144 hertz. It's 4K. So you're going, okay, like this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? This is what you want for your PS5 or Xbox Series X. Not exactly. First question again, because it's so new. Is this a good monitor for the PS4 or PS5? Not really. Most reviewers are clear this is more of a PC-focused monitor, especially due to the lack of HDMI 2.1 for 4K. For PS5, it will do 1080 at 120 hertz, so you will get that faster frames per second if you want to lower the resolution, which again, earlier I stated, most games right now are going to lower the resolution, so this would work for most games that are available right now. For the Xbox Series X, it will do the 1440. So again, the Xbox is a sweet spot for you because it does give you 2K at 120. However, without HDMI 2.1, you'll not be able to do 4K at 120. Even though I don't know how they're going to do it, if they can make some games that are 4K 120, that are AAA titles, you're going to want to utilize that. So even though you might want to, get this right away, I don't want you to have buyer's remorse because you're going, 120, 1080, that's fine, 4K 60, I'm not going to do it. They're not going to make AAA games at 4K 120. I've eaten my words too many times to say that wouldn't happen. There are some 4K games that are indie titles, but at the end of the day, I don't know how they're going to do 4K 120 with the hardware that's in the PS5 and Xbox, even though it's amazing. I don't know how they're going to do AAA titles, but they've done some crazy stuff, so I'm not going to go ahead and write it off. So for me, you got to wait. This monitor offers 4K at 60 and has HDMI version 2.0. It will work with next generation consoles, but it will not offer the 4K 120 because it does not have 2.1. The way you can get 4K on this 120 is through a display port. And again, you don't have a display port on the consoles, so we're not going to worry about that. So essentially, this right here would be a fantastic gaming monitor for almost anybody PC gaming. For console gaming, it'll get 90% of your games right now exactly like they're supposed to be played. But they're not going to have the 2.1 on any of these monitors. They don't actually exist. That's the problem with gaming monitors right now. There are a couple coming out at the end of January and February, supposedly, that are supposed to have HDMI 2.1, but you can't even order them yet. So as of right now, TVs are the only thing that you can fully utilize your new console. And if you want a smaller TV, you're SOL. There's no TV under 48 or 49 inches that you can buy that will utilize that console. So right now, it's kind of a weird spot. We have this technology that's incredible, that we want to utilize it, but you're kind of stuck between buying a limited number of televisions that are large, or you're buying a really expensive, really nice gaming monitor that can't even do 4K 120 through HDMI at this point. So that's kind of the predicament we're in. And at this point, I wouldn't recommend buying a gaming monitor if you ever want to see 4K 120. Because it will not have it. If you don't care, then have at it. This is a fantastic monitor. There's a bunch of these on here. We'll go low to high just so you can see it, but they all are at $679. Any 4K monitor that offers over 60 hertz is going to be expensive. So for that, I think that you're better off looking at either getting a TV or waiting the next 6 months, because prices always go down once people get used to it. And with the production of the PS5 and Series X being so limited, everything associated with these consoles is expensive, including the monitors. So in my opinion, unless you're going to fork out some cash right away, or you want a large TV and you don't mind, and you're in the market for a new TV anyway, then there is some decent deals on 4K televisions that offer 120. But otherwise, I hope this kind of gave you an idea of what to look for and a little bit of a buying guide when it came to picking up a TV. There are a handful of TVs through Best Buy or Amazon that have HDMI 2.1, but please do yourself a favor, look at the questions and answers and verify that it has HDMI 2.1 attached to it. There you have it, gamers. I know there was some technical stuff going on there, but I was trying to make it as simple as possible. Hertz and frames per second work one in the same, and I hope that this helped you when you're looking at making a decision on buying a new TV or monitor. There's going to be some gaming monitors out in the next month or two that are going to be awesome if you want a smaller screen, 27 to 32 inches. If you want to get a TV right now, you can buy one that will be perfect for your PS5 or Xbox Series X. For me, I'm definitely getting an upgrade soon. I just don't know what I'm going to be doing. If you're not into competitive gaming, if you don't care about FPS, don't worry about it. Enjoy your 4K 60 Hz screen as it is, because it's really not going to make a huge difference to you. If you're a hardcore gamer, if your first-person shooters your thing, racing simulators, it might be worth looking at. But I hope that this buying guide and a little bit of an explanation on how it works creates less confusion, because for me, when it came out, I couldn't figure it all out. I couldn't understand what this whole 120 meant and why this TV I had that's pretty new wasn't working. And now that I've been able to read and do more research, I hope that I was able to relay that information to you to make an educated decision on your next purchase. Whew. All right, gamers, too much technical stuff. I need to go play some games now. Give my mind a break. Hey, if you like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, come hang out with me again. I do some gaming stuff once in a while. It's not all technical crap like this. As always though, keep trolling, keep rolling. We'll see you next time.